This conference will now be recorded.
It has that max headroom hesitation.
Yeah, sorry about that. Gee, I almost forgot. I'm always reminding Rick, and then I almost forgot myself.
Well, that's okay. We didn't miss anything.
No.
I guess I can start taking roll call here. Find out who wants time to talk tonight, and I'll start just at the top of my list, which might be different from yours. Well, I have Jake. Anything from you?
No, not really, Glenn.
Okay, Peter.
Yes, not right now. Depends on whether you want to talk. I've got some comments on clinical trials, but that's about it.
Yeah, I'll give an update on myself, and then you can add in your piece. Let's see, Rich Jackson.
No, I'm still in a holding pattern. Nothing's changed.
Okay, holding pattern is good. Dennis Correa.
No, I don't need any time. Thanks, Glenn.
Okay, Dennis. How about you, Jay Mills?
I may have a question, but nothing right now.
Okay, I didn't hear the whole thing, but it sounded like you did want some time.
No, I have nothing right now, but I may.
Nothing, I'm sorry. Okay,
Nothing.
very good. Okay, John Appler.
Yeah, hi, Len. No, I'm okay. My test results came back right in the middle, so I'm fine, and had a nice chance to visit with Peter and share a beer, so I'm good for right now. Thanks a lot for asking.
Okay, is that an update though? Your test results that came right in the middle? Maybe we need just a brief touch base with you, find out what you meant by that.
Yeah, if you have the comment, you have time at the end, no problem.
Okay. Yeah. I need to let you guys know that when Rick does this, he has a whole database and everyone's medical history, and I don't have that. So
If we ask questions, actually, it might be something you've repeated before, but as Len says, Rick has it all written down, and nobody else does. So, yeah. Our apologies in advance, right, Len?
Well said. Ken Anderson, how are you?
I'm good. I'm eating, so sorry for that. But I can give a little update on my visit with Paul Korn, and also I'd like to kind of ask 2 questions.
Okay. And Brooklyn-born Larry Fish. What have you got for us, Larry?
I don't know. There was something I thought maybe I want to discuss with the group.
Okay. You got it.
Good. Thanks.
Yep, we'll get back to you. Les, shoulder up.
Nothing for me, but if you could put your foot in the door for Dick Bailey, he was going to be joining late, probably around 6 o'clock. So if you could leave a time spot for him.
Okay. I forgot, what was his first name?
Richard or Dick Bailey.
Yeah. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Is he going to call in this time so he can talk?
No, he said that he's got a whole system where he can talk and be viewed and everything. So.
Okay, because it's so easy to just use the phone if the microphone's not working on the computer or something. I mean, I meant to mention that last week. It's such a simple thing.
Yeah, I think it's a new system, so he may not have tried it out yet, but he says that he's got the system. So.
Okay.
All right, and our good friend Paul Frieda, anything from you?
Tonight, just listening, I think. Thanks.
Okay, Paul. And our southern gentleman, Sylvester Mann.
No, I'm just listening. Thanks anyway.
Well, Jake, are you there? Because those are the only guys I can see on the list.
That's all I see too, Len.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Did you ask Dennis? Did you check in with Dennis?
yeah,
Jay Mills, did you check in with him?
I did.
Okay, then yeah, you got everybody.
Okay. Except for possibly Dick Bailey, it doesn't sound like we have anyone who has a lot to say. So I'm going to start off with an update from me. For those of you who are listening on the last call, I had a visit with my oncologist just yesterday. And just for a little background, I'm a Gleason 9. I had IMRT, 48 sessions of IMRT, 86 gray to the prostate and the pelvic region. That was in September of 2016. It brought down my PSA to 0.1. And from there, it gradually rose over a period of months to 0.5. And then I think it was about, so October of 2017, it was 0.5. And I was on a drug holiday, and it just plateaued there at 0.5 for the next year and a couple of months. And then it started to rise again. And it's now 0.82. So I met with my oncologist thinking I was going to go back on ADT. And what he wanted to do instead was, since I hadn't been scanned since about May of 2016, he wanted to do a scan. This is at Mount Sinai in New York City. They have Axumin, which is one of the more sensitive, more recent scans. It does have FDA approval. So we're going to set that up for sometime in the next couple of weeks before I go down to Florida for the winter. And I talked to him about 2 other scans I was interested in that are probably a little more sensitive. One is the same one that Peter just had, the gallium-68 PSMA at UCSF. And I contacted someone there, but they haven't returned my call yet. And then there's the NIH trial where they have another PSMA scan with a different agent, which is an alphabet soup. It's called 18FDC. Oh boy, DCFPYL. And that's supposed to be the most sensitive. Unfortunately,
I've never heard of that.
What's that?
It's a new one. I've never heard of that one.
Yeah. And unfortunately for me, they have a wait list. And she said, I could put you on the wait list, but it doesn't look like we'd get to you until March. And my oncologist was not too happy about the fact that I might want to wait until March while my PSA is potentially continuing to rise and not being on any ADT. So that's where I stand right now, waiting to be scanned. And I think this is where Peter wanted to piggyback in with some information relevant to me.
Yeah. I have a buddy here. I'm getting an echo. Let me turn my volume on. Is that any better? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
We're still getting echo from you though.
Maybe it's me. I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, so
that's better. Yeah.
I have a buddy here who I went to his oncology appointment last day. It was Tuesday, right? So less than a week ago. And his oncologist here, who doesn't really have much of a team, he's kind of on his own. His comment to this friend of mine was, "Oh, well, the next thing we need is a really good PET scan, but we don't have them here in Hawaii." He left it at that. So I said to his oncologist, "Listen, if we can get him in on a trial for gallium-68 or something, or a C11 choline, would you order it for him?" And he said yes, he'd do that. So we immediately got online, found that UCSF had the best program with the least criteria, and I got a call back right away from Raven Smith, and I had met her last year when I did my gallium-68. She's a nurse practitioner there. She called me right back, and I described the situation, asked whether this guy met the criteria, and she felt he did. He had FLA as his primary treatment, so it was an oddball situation. Anyway, so she emailed me the information, which I had forwarded you, Len, and my buddy printed it up, brought it in for his oncologist to sign on Friday, and which he did, and it's only a one-page order form, so he ordered it. And my buddy yesterday called up UCSF, and they have all his information. They took his insurance stuff, and they said he's in. The earliest they could give him is the second or third week in February. And when he said, is that the earliest? They said, well, call every week if there's a cancellation or something like that, and you can fly over. We'll squeeze you in. So he's in for the second week of February or third week of February, and right now, and he's just going to call every week. So that's an option. Plus he's now in the UCSF system by doing this, which gives him access to a better oncologist. So I told him this morning to try to make an appointment with one of the top oncologists there for that same week when he goes over for the scan, to have it read and have a consultation and kind of get an idea what his next steps might be. So I guess I'm just saying, plus you'd score a lot of points with Rick. If you went through UCSF too. Anyway, I'm just saying that, here we are in little old Hawaii with not many options at our doorstep, but they were pretty swift in getting to us and so forth. So just I'd pursue it a little bit, because you could fly over, in just one night, do this thing in San Francisco. Just spend a night at an airport hotel and take the scan and go back down to Florida this next day, and you'd be fine. So, there's no real after effects from the treatment at all, from the scan. And they'll give you a copy of the scan the same day. It's right across the hall. They'll give you the CD. You can't pick up the written copy for a couple of days, but I'm sure they'll send it right to Dr. O, and you can consider it with him. Anyway, just some thoughts. I'm not pushing, but I'm just thinking out loud here.
No, I would love to have that scan done, and for the reason that, as Dr. O told me, people have opinions about which scan is better, but really there's been no head-to-head comparison of Axiom versus gallium-68 PSMA versus the one that they have at the NIH. So we don't really know for sure. And so Dr. O was thinking, hey, look, if we scan you with Axiom, and then, which by the way is what they call a metabolic scan. It's like choline. So both the choline scans and the Axiom scans, which is an amino acid, synthetic amino acid, those work because the prostate cancer cells are metabolizing, growing, and they pick up those substances. and then they have the PSMA tag, which, you know, in the radio tracer. So that's how they see where the lesions are. Those are metabolic scans. Now, the other type of scans, like the one Peter had, the PSMA, all the PSMA scans are what they call anatomic or targeted scans, because there's a monoclonal antibody that zooms in on the PSMA, any cell that has a PSMA, whether it's active or not. So it'd be great to compare the two different types of scans. And so I'm a little disappointed to hear that I couldn't get into UCSF until February. But I don't know, if the Axumin scan doesn't pick up anything for me, maybe I can afford to wait until February before and not take any ADT, which of course would disqualify me.
Len, one of the things that I gleaned from the PCRI conference disc so far was that gallium is, as you pointed out, is only good for PSMA, and they recommend a prior test before you go for the scan itself. I don't remember what it was called. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's some kind of test, a blood test maybe. Shoot, I wish I remembered, but I do know that they said it's because it is sensitive only to PSMA, that it makes sense to take the blood test first to save the expense if you don't have the PSMA in your bloodstream.
Yeah.
Did you remember that from the discs?
No, I didn't, but I didn't view all the discs.
Oh.
And although I was at the conference, I certainly don't remember everything. So I don't know, Peter, you remember anything about that?
No, but I will tell you there is a head-to-head study about how effective each scan is with various PSA levels. And I saw this when I was first researching what scan to take myself a year ago. And I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if I could find it again, particularly while we're talking. I don't think I can. But it essentially said that at low PSAs, under 1, the gallium-68 or the other one you mentioned, those PSMA scans are very effective. Gallium-68, particularly at 1, which you were close to, and I was close to. I had a 0.85 when I took mine. What's the name of the one on the Oxymin? Oxymin scale is not effective at low PSAs. It's only got about a 40% effective rate at that in terms of picking up lesions at that point. It really is more effective. The Oxymin gets effective when you've got your PSA is over 2, I believe. So, over 2.0. So that's something else to consider. That head-to-head study, it lists all of them, including the C11 and several others. It kind of shows where they all fall in terms of different PSA levels and the percentage of accuracy and the ability to pick things up. I'll see if I can find it either online or I might have a hard copy of it.
You know, Peter, I think I actually do have that myself. And yes, it does show, it shows the DCF PYL scan by the NIH as being the most sensitive, followed by gallium, followed by axiom, and then the choline scans. But it's not as if axiom doesn't pick up anything until your PSA is 2. It's just, it picks up a larger percentage of positive lesions the higher the PSA goes, which is true for all of them.
Right.
Yeah.
The low PSA, if it misses something at the low PSA, it doesn't mean you don't have something there.
Right.
The other thing that I remember from these discs, Len, and you know how bad my memory is, but I forget which doctor it was. He talked about how cancer mutates and changes, and then so sometimes you have adenocarcinoma. You also have small cell, and you also have neuroendocrine. And gallium does not work on the small cell or the neuroendocrine. So, for what that's worth.
Because those cells don't produce PSMA.
Correct.
I think that's what Jake's referring to, is that some prostate cancer patients don't actually express PMSA. So that PET scan that uses that as like a tracer, it won't work for them. So that's why he's stating, and I'm sure that's why whatever it is that you saw or heard was referring to getting tested first, because if you don't express PMSA, you're not going to get any as far as good results with that particular test.
Right.
That's true.
We all know Len is independently wealthy, and it's probably not an issue for him, but for some of us, that would be a big deal. It's like me, for example.
Doesn't matter how much money you have. I wouldn't want to have a scan done if it's not possible for it to detect anything because I don't have PSMA. But but those types of prostate cancer cells, the neuroendocrine and the small cell, that's a very low percentage of guys who have that.
The comment was 13%.
13%?
That's what Paul said.
Well,
that's a sizable percentage. Say again?
Yeah, we had a discussion just in regards to that particular issue because I was going in to have that same test and I wanted to know whether or not, and he said, and again, I didn't have the test, but he said the likelihood that it would be okay for me was pretty high. But he at the same time said that 13% of men do not express PMSA. So there is, it's not a real small number, but it's a number small.
Did he say how do they test for that? Is it a blood test? How do they know?
I do believe it is a blood test.
Okay. Oh, so I did understand correctly. That's a switch.
So,
Ken.
you know what, Ken, I think I remember that 13% number, but that was for the more limited population of guys who are castrate resistant, which could be the case for many guys who get scanned. But what happens is once you're
possible, because that is me. So
right.
Yeah, because normally the incidence of neuroendocrine cancer, for instance, is 3% in the whole population of guys with prostate cancer, but it rises substantially once you become resistant to the second generation ADT drugs like abiraterone or Xtandi. Probably going to be true of Erlita also. So the theory is that those drugs kill off the cells that have the antigens, and so all you're left with are the neuroendocrine cells, which don't have the androgen receptors on them. They're androgen receptor independent. And so, of course, those are the populations that spread. So, I don't know if anyone else has questions about this. I'll open it up to the floor.
Maybe some guys are wondering if they heard the conversation last week. You were also talking about the possibility of Erlita.
Yes. That's true, I was, but I didn't discuss it with Dr. O because we spent all of our time talking about scans, However, I did receive an email from Al Fatt, who is a guy who's been on our calls and who is on Erleada monotherapy. So he's not taking Lupron or anything similar. He's just taking Erleada, which is a second-line anti-androgen, very similar to Xtandi. And I asked him what were the side effects he was experiencing. First, I should say that it was working for him. It brought down his PSA to 0.05 after, I don't know, about 4 months, I believe, on Erleada. So it is working. Now, and it allows his testosterone to remain high because he's not taking Lupron or anything like that. So the side effects, nevertheless, were still brain fog, fatigue, joint pain, and breast tenderness, which is can also lead to gynecomastia if you use drugs like Casodex without Lupron, or you use Erleada without Lupron. It has something to do with unopposed estrogen. I don't recall the details, but yeah, those are the side effects when you use that type of monotherapy. So I was on Zytiga briefly once, and like Peter, I tolerated it quite well. So I think that if I did have to go back on ADT, I would choose the Zytiga rather than Erleada.
But you know, the thing with Erleada is if you went the Al-Fat way, then you could try it without the Lupron. Nobody will give you abiraterone without the Lupron. Correct?
Well, no, you
can't get Zytiga as a monotherapy.
That's right, because the whole idea of not taking the Lupron would be so that you could keep your testosterone level high.
Right.
That wouldn't work with Zytiga because Zytiga works differently than Xtandi and Erleada. It works by preventing the synthesis of testosterone. So it doesn't do you any good to do monotherapy with Zytiga. It's still going to suppress your T levels.
Right.
Well, okay, we can move on to, well, how about you, Ken? Ken Anderson, you want to talk to us?
Yeah, you know, I can I can kind of go through kind of what transpired while I met with Paul and kind of give you his 2 cents as to where I'm going next. Do you think I need to go from the beginning, or can I just start from my meeting with Paul? Do you think I need to outline where I'm at?
Yeah, just, like in less than a minute, give us your background.
All right. In December of 2016, I went in for my annual physical and found out I had prostate cancer. I found out after the biopsy, which was 30 days later, that I had a Gleason 9, stage 4. At that time, I was told I had bone mets, 5 to 7 bone mets, and active lymph node involvement, and not such a great picture, and completely shocked the shit out of me. I then, of course, went searching for service or a doctor that could assist, and clients had referred me to MD Anderson in Houston and got me Paul Korn. Paul, at first meeting, I did in fact like him very first meeting. He was the second doctor that I had seen. The first doctor here locally was not a genourinary medical oncologist, and everyone insisted that that's what I needed because of the stage of the disease. So after, deciding that I was going to travel from Phoenix, Arizona to Houston on a regular basis to kind of do what it is that I needed to do, I originally started with Lupron to shrink the problem areas, basically the prostate and the lymph nodes. So after being on Lupron 3 months, I was convinced that the next thing based on that Stampede trial was to go ahead and do 6 rounds of chemotherapy. So I did the 6 rounds of chemo and visited with Paul once again. And he then started discussing possible treatment options, because at that point I was still pretty eager to get on with the treatments to try to figure out what it was I could do to stay alive a little longer. His recommendation at that point was a clinical trial that they were doing at MD Anderson that was to remove the prostate. The problem with me for the trial was it was randomized, and it was like a 50-50% chance that either I was going to participate in the trial or I was going to not participate. I was going to stay on Lupron and see how I progressed without removing the prostate. And I just basically told him that, I didn't want to play. Either I'm deciding and he's deciding that taking the prostate out, which is the primary, is the best thing to do, or it's not the best thing to do. I mean, either we take it away or we radiate it or we do something to it. And his comment was that he quite honestly felt that addressing the primary was like 95% a good thing. So after everything's said and done, I decided to go ahead, and 2 months later, I started radiation therapy on my prostate bed. So I had, I think, 2.5 months of IMRT, and they radiated my prostate. And at the time, there was a comment by the radial oncologist that, there was an area within my prostate that he couldn't get to because it was close to other stuff. And I don't really know whether it was my anus. I don't know what it was that he didn't radiate. But it seems like that now has come to bite me in the butt, because my most recent visit with Paul, and again, I have not and do not get scans on a real frequent basis. I've had the one set of scans, which was a bone scan and an MRI, when I first got diagnosed, to find out that I had bone mets and that it was kind of in my prostate and lymph nodes. At that time I was worried that it was in other organs, but I found out that not to be the case. So that was the first scan. The second scan was one that I wasn't prepared for, but it was at MD Anderson, and it was an MRI, but it was a scan that uses a inflatable coil that they shove up your bottom side to get everything spread apart, to take a good picture of what's going on inside. And that, quite honestly, sent me through the roof, because they didn't tell me it was something that I was going to do. So I don't really know that they got very good images. So just recently, my PSA, well, in the last 4 months, my PSA started going up. My PSA has been as high as 560, then it moved to 729. I went on Lupron and it dropped down to 50. And then I went on I went on chemo and it dropped down to 27. And I went on radiation and it dropped down to 6. And eventually it settled in at 5. And I was at 5 for approximately, 20 months. And just recently, well, in the last 3 months, my PSA has been rising just a little bit every month. So I started out at 0.5. Right now it's at 1.0. So I am under the impression, and I'm quite sure, that I'm no longer I'm castrate resistant. So I need to move on to the next drug. So I go to MD Anderson, get the scans. The scans show less lesions in the bones, meaning that the treatments and/or therapies, have been effective, which Paul already told me that he thought that would be the case, but instead of being 4 to 5 spots, at least visible on this PMSA scan, there's 3. And I actually know where they are now, which I haven't known in the past. So I've always wondered if the pain that I feel around my body is related to cancer, if it's just random muscle pain, and that's pretty much what it is. But the fact is, my PSA is still rising, so I need to go on to the next drug. And the next drug for me apparently is going to be enzalutamide, Xtandi. I did start recently Casodex, 100 milligrams is kind of buying time because I know every time I use one of these drugs, I use one of the arrows in my quiver. So my questions are as follow. Does anyone not take a therapy until your PSA goes to 10 to 14 and starts it after it rises to such a level? Because I remember hearing one guy on this call stating that he was managing his PSA in a fashion that led me to believe that he did something, watch his PSA lower, and then he did nothing and his PSA rose. Then he did like the Rick Simpson oil for a while and he got 4 months out of that. And because my concern is once I use up all these things, there's nothing else other than chemo to kind of keep me from causing the cancer to progress. So that's one question. And the other question is enzalutamide. What are my additional side effects that I'm going to get out of taking this drug? It was more than a minute. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. I think we needed that to understand, you know, your whole journey here.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, no, I just thank you for that, you know, nice description.
Yeah. Ken, what type of scan did you have?
I had the PMSA scan, and luckily it was, you know, I got the feeling that it's fairly new, even at MD Anderson. I don't think they've done that much of it because the report that was given to Paul while I was sitting with him, I mean, it looked like he was digesting what whoever writes the report was saying, because a comment on lesions where there's significantly less activity in the bones, but quite honestly, it's just because I think the therapies have caused fewer of them to show. They're still there, they're just dormant. And he used the word remission, but in my head, I think of it more like the desert. The plants here, when there's no rain, they don't do anything, but as soon as they get testosterone, they're going to start going crazy again. So once my PSA, and it already has started to rise, once the drugs that you take to limit production of testosterone no longer work, those spots, which again are 4 to 7 in my head, are going to come back alive. They're not gone because they haven't been dealt with 100%. So I had the PMSA to answer your question, Lynn.
Okay. And now you were on Lupron and your PSA was rising. So then you were on Casodex. Are you still on Casodex?
Just, you know, I was only on Casodex in the very beginning for 2 weeks to limit this peak that they refer to. So I was on it for 2 weeks before I started Lupron, and this was in 2016 in December. So I went off Casodex as soon as that 2 weeks had passed and went on Lupron. And the Lupron actually, you know, cut my PSA and made it fall like a rock. And in fact, everything shrunk a great deal compared to the very first scans. That second scan was like 3 months after at MD Anderson. And at least the dimensions that were given in the pathology reflected that everything was a lot smaller. And that's when Paul was saying, this is the ideal time to go in with radiation when everything's a lot smaller. So that's when I went for radiation. Again, what was your question?
Well, you answered the question. So when you had the scan, it was post-radiation. Did they see any lesions in the area where you were radiated? Oh, yeah, you said they did see something, right?
Yeah, they did. The comment in the most recent scans that I did omit when I was chatting away was that the PMSA showed less activity in the bones, very little less activity being 3 spots that were identifiable. And then as far as the lymph nodes, it showed nothing, which is hard to believe. And then the area that did show up, which is the one comment that I made about radiating the prostate versus doing, you know, a prostatectomy, was that my prostate came back alive, and there's a pretty good size within my prostate that glowed like crazy, showing that there's activity in my prostate again. And Paul wasn't sure whether or not my PSA rise from my from the fact that my prostate was producing, cancer cells, or whether or not I was truly no longer sensitive to being castrate resistant or castrate resistant. He didn't know. He said either it was one or the other. And the problem was he wanted to do like a new genetic sequencing, but since my prostate's been fried by radiation, it creates a problem with going and taking a sample. So I'm doing tomorrow, I'm getting my blood drawn here in Phoenix and sending it to Foundation Medicine to find out whether or not I have any of those mismatch repair genes, all those things that one looks for when you have resequencing done. Foundation Medicine. Luckily, Rick, I talked to him today and he got me in touch with Richard Marsek, who was his buddy there. And my oncologist here locally is going to have the sample, not the sample, but the kit tomorrow morning. And I'm going to go in and get my blood drawn and send it off. And hopefully before the end of the year, I'll know whether or not that mutation shows, or any mutation show, because when my first sequencing done, nothing was available. Nothing showed as being actionable. So Foundation Medicine was right on the ball though. I talked to about 2 people, and within 15 minutes I had the packet in the mail to my oncologist, and they're going to get it tomorrow, and I'm going to give the blood tomorrow, and it's going to be sent back. And I have no idea what it's going to cost, but I'm not too worried about that at the moment.
Okay. So I think one of your questions was, do other guys take the treatments in succession, and when one fails, you move on to the next one? So I'm guessing what you meant by that was, should you now that you're castrate resistant with Lupron, should you move on to Casodex?
No, my question, Lynn, was, do you guys know of anyone that's had treatments like Lupron? Their PSA starts to rise. My PSA is like 1.0, and I've grafted it, and thank you, Peter. I actually put it on a graft and looked from day one kind of where I'm going and projected, and I know it's subject to change, but I grafted it on a graft, and I can look at extending that graft, and it looks like at the rate I'm going, if it doesn't change, I'll get 12 to 14 months before my PSA hits 10. So has anyone not done a treatment and just let their PSA rise to hit 10 and then started the treatment? Is there any logic in that?
Well, I actually did that, Ken. When I was first diagnosed, my oncologist at that time at Sloan Kettering said, "You're not a good candidate for surgery or radiation." So he just put me on ADT. It wasn't Lupron, it was Degaralex, Firmagon, basically the same thing. And it brought my PSA down to below 0.2. And then he said, "I want to put you on a drug holiday now, for your cardiovascular and bone health." And so then over a period of 7 months, my PSA went from 0.2 to 10.9 before he said, "Okay, we're going to put you back on Degaralex or Firmagon." So I guess now the only difference between me and you, however, is that I did not have any visible bone lesions. So that might make a difference in how high they'd like your PSA to rise. I had lymph node involvement, but not bone.
I'll put that question, the same question, to Paul, and when he doesn't want to answer such a question, he just doesn't. Unless I'm persistent, if I send it to him 2 or 3 times, I'll get his take on that concept. And the fact that he didn't reply like he normally does, if I send him a request, he replies pretty quick. But usually if it's a request that either he doesn't know the answer to, or he just doesn't want to reply, he doesn't reply. And I think that's a question he doesn't want to reply to because he doesn't know the answer to. Because I think it's different for everyone. he did reply when I was sitting in my local medoc's office today, and I asked today or yesterday, it was yesterday, because I was getting ready to start this next drug, enzalutamide, and I was just like, is there anything I can do not to start the next drug because I'm worried about using all the arrows real quick, you know? And she said, the only thing we could do is instead, and they're the similar drugs, one's more effective than the other, the only thing she could think of was to start, you know, Casodex again. So right now I'm taking 100 milligrams per day of Casodex, and I know it's very similar to enzalutamide. I know enzalutamide's a way better drug. And if it knocks my PSA down, I might stay on Casodex for a while until it doesn't work, but I don't know if it ruins my use of enzalutamide later. You know, I don't know. Paul, I sent an email. I sent an email to him, like sitting in her office, and within 2 seconds he replied back and said that he thought that was an okay idea. So that's what I'm doing.
Jake, haven't you been on enzalutamide for a while?
Yes. Yeah, I have been. And Ken, I was also on Casodex for about a year, and it kept my PSA down. But the problem with Casodex is apparently your cancer can keep growing sometimes, even though it seems to have an effect on the PSA. So Casodex is kind of a little bit iffy. But it did keep my PSA down for over a year, or almost a year, I should say. And then I went on to Xtandi, and I've been on that for I think almost 2 years. And my PSA is rising now, but it kept it low for the longest time.
So the one after the other didn't seem to be a problem for at least you.
No. I did try. There's a thing called. My memory is so bad. That's one of the side effects of Lupron and enzalutamide. Where there's like a when you stop Casodex, there's like a rebound effect. For some people, about 30% of the people who stop it actually have a period of time where their PSA drops even lower once it starts rising on Casodex. You know what I'm talking about. Do you remember the name term, Len?
I don't, but yeah, I know the phenomenon.
Yeah, it's
not taking Casodex.
Androgen withdrawal syndrome is what it's called. But we tried that for a couple of months right after when I stopped the Casodex. We tried it for a few months, just continued with the Lupron. In my case, it did not work. My PSA started shooting up. So then within 2 months, I started the Xtandi.
Well, I was planning on doing Casodex just for as long as I see that it lowers my PSA or at least holds it stable. I would stay on it for 4 or 5 months, and then I would go on. Even if my numbers don't go up, I'd go on to the enzalutamide kind of. I just want to buy 4 or 5 months. I don't know if, honestly, I don't know that anything's going to change in our paradigm for treating prostate cancer. I'm hopeful, but I don't know. You know, I didn't get a lot of, and Paul's always very optimistic and upbeat and never wants you to leave his office on a downer. And I know that's just his personality. So, but I can't help but think that there hasn't been that much in his lab or any place that's been super positive. You know, Jim Alice been working on this drug that ALI or
Erlita.
Maybe it's April. I don't know which one it is, but the one that he's
or Erlita, that's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the one that he won the Nobel Prize for, but and Paul said it's just not showing to be super effective for prostate cancer.
That's not the one.
Yeah, it's disappointing.
Yeah, like I said, the Casodex probably will work for a while. You know, the good thing about it is it's cheap. It's generic. It's dirt cheap.
Good. I know I'm gonna stick on that through the holidays and see how it does.
Yeah, And then if your PSA starts rising, then try to stop it for a month or two to see if your PSA actually responds to that. Once it starts rising on Casodex, try to stop it for a month or two, and if it does, then you're in good shape for a few months. But like I said, it only affects 30. That only works for about 30% of the people.
Gotcha.
And then enzalutamide with me, again, my PSA was rising on Casodex, so I started the Xtandi, and it went down to 0.5 at its lowest point.
Any additional side effects?
Well, don't forget, I've always been on Lupron the whole time. But yeah, so fatigue, additional fatigue. You lose hair. Like I can't grow a beard. I tried to grow a beard for November, the Movember thing they do.
Right.
This is like 3 months of growth.
That's from Xtandi, you think?
Embarrassing. No underarm hair, no arm hair, no leg hair.
I told Paul when I first met him, I don't care about growing tits, and I don't care about hair. I just don't want to die in 2 years.
Right. I mean, the fatigue is the biggest thing. It's, as Rick and everybody will tell you, and this is one thing that I don't do is, you should keep exercising. That helps. I don't do that, but that is a good thing. That'll keep your energy up. Hair loss.
Jake, you could do yoga. It's not stressful. It's just stretching and breathing. You could do yoga.
Well, but yeah, I mean, those things will help with the fatigue. There is some mental fog. Like my memory is not that good. I know what I want to say, but I just can't think of the terms. And I think that's the enzalutamide too. Or it could just be 6 years of Lupron, or a combination of the two. But it's, I've had metastatic prostate cancer in my bones since June of 2012, and I'm still kicking.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think I might be the one that you thought about talking about because my doctor has said, let it rise to 10, or when you start having pain, and then we'll change the treatment. So it may be me that you're referring to.
It was actually Cam Upton and I. He's the kid or guy in Australia, and we chat every now and then about. And his doctor is the one. He's actually taking a little holiday. He's going to Europe, or I think he left today, and he's only going to stick on Lupron. He's not, and his PSA is rising just like mine. He went on Casodex, and his doctor said, "Hey, we'll just let your PSA rise," because he had his prostate removed, and his PSA is way lower than mine. So he has a much more aggressive cancer, but he's the one that brought up the concept of maybe buying time by letting it just rise and then wait and start treatment later. And I'd never given it any thought, but maybe it's not a bad idea. So Lynn, I was happy to hear that you actually did that for a while, and the one thing I was worried about was the increased burden or cancer burden. If you do that, does it create a problem later? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't think anybody does. I think there's different opinions. I mean, my doctor's a little bit old school, and Rick does not really approve of what she says to me. But like I said, she's kept me alive for 6 years, so I have to kind of go with what she says. Other people are of the opinion that you should jump on, change things as soon as PSA starts going up. Peter, I think, is one of those. Len is probably in between the two extremes. I don't know. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
All right, you guys should move along. I've taken up a lot of the time. Thank you for taking the info, though.
Well, thank you, Ken. And there is one thing I wanted to add. There was a clinical trial that compared the length of progression-free survival of pitting Casodex versus Xtandi or enzalutamide. And there was a definite significant benefit to a greater progression-free survival with Xtandi than with Casodex. Now, my issue with that trial is, what about the situation like Jake, where he spent a year on Casodex alone, and then he went to Xtandi, and so in other words, he was sequential instead of jumping right to Xtandi first time around. So we don't really, that trial that showed the superiority of Xtandi over Casodex didn't take into account the fact that guys will get some mileage out of Casodex by itself before they even start Xtandi. So it's a difficult question to answer, I think.
Well, thank you for that input. I do agree. It's not one that the pharmaceutical companies, because I don't know that Xtandi and Casodex are manufactured by the same company. They're probably not. So they're not going to do a comparison with those two drugs if in fact it's not something that will be beneficial for them. So it's going to be up to people like us to say, hey, this works or it doesn't work. Because I don't think, and Paul's comment was he didn't think it would have any harm. And if he thought that it would have harm, then he would have said no. So I think there's no harm. So that's what I'm going to do, at least for now. I don't know that it's going to work. And I guess I'll let you know if it works or it doesn't work, because I'll have to wait 3, 4, maybe 2 months, 8 weeks to 2 different test cycles to see whether or not taking Casodex and Lupron at the same time will at least stop my PSA from rising. And if I can get the same result that Jake gets, I'll stay on it for a year until it doesn't work. Because that seems like a rational approach.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment? Well, did you have anything else you wanted to add, Ken?
No, thank you for your time. I'm good.
Okay. All right, thank you.
This is Jay. I had a comment that might be useful.
Okay, Jay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Sure.
Yeah, that I recall there's a test that one of the drugs might, in some individuals, it has no efficacy or poor efficacy, and I think it was AR7 was the test that you looked for to see if enzalutamide, maybe it is.
ARV7.
Is anybody? Is that for enzalutamide?
Enzalutamide and Zytiga.
Okay, both. Okay, then in that, if that's something that a doctor, you always have to make sure everybody does what the logical thing, and that would be in your planning to know that early on, so that if you're saying, here's the sequence that I might take, or that those two things might be part quivers in my bows in my quiver, to know that they're absent would be very helpful. And to know how conservative, like you're contemplating, you should be with using these things, and that may weigh into your decision with your oncologist.
Yeah. By the way, Foundation Medicine is now testing for the ARV7 mutation. And in case that wasn't clear to everyone, when you have that ARV7 mutation, it's highly unlikely that you will respond well to either Zytiga or Xtandi or probably Orlida.
Because up until now, it's only been available at Johns Hopkins, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but Foundation Medicine is now doing it.
Okay.
And by the way, Jake, your video is frozen.
No, I've shut it off. I'm being a bad boy, Len.
Oh, okay. We know what that means.
Yeah.
But we don't want to watch.
Everybody probably knows what it means, but still.
Okay.
Don't do it on camera.
Somebody else is on the phone now.
Oh, thank you for catching that.
Len, I have a quick question. You said at the ARV mutation, I was under the impression that you would be able to decide whether Zytiga or Xtandi was better for you. You're saying if you've got it, none of them will work?
That's correct. If you have the ARV7 mutation, Zytiga will not work and Xtandi will not work. Now, I'm not sure if that's 100%. there might be a very small minority of guys who will still respond. It probably won't respond as robustly as those who don't have that mutation.
Right.
Yeah, Lynn, Paul's comment, because I'd asked that same thing, his comment was he would still try it even if you're not ARV7 positive, because there is that small percentage of those guys that will respond to it, and you don't know until you do it.
Right.
You know, it's curious. You know, my insurance company approved Xtandi for me. You would think if there was a test that would rule, the ARV7 would help rule out the efficacy of Xtandi, you'd think that the insurance company would insist on that, but they did not. They approved it automatically. So, which I find a little bit strange, you know, because no matter what blood test that they do, can't be $10,000 a month, but for whatever that's worth. But Rick has pointed out before that he thinks there's going to come a day where the insurance companies require that before they'll approve either abiraterone or enzalutamide, and that does make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, could happen.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter, for pointing out. We have somebody else on the telephone. Would you care to identify?
It's Marta and Dave.
Marta?
Marta, M-A-R-T-A, and Dave, D-A-V-E. It's the second forum that I've actually participated in, the first one that he's participated in, and he's, I don't think that we're in the right one because I don't really know what you're talking about. I mean, he's already had his operation and he's in 6 months cancer-free right now. And I thought it was a support group for prostate cancer.
Well, it is that. It's a support group for prostate cancer, but it's only for advanced prostate cancer.
Right, if you have a mutant gene, right? Right now, that's what you're discussing is a drug that may go either way if you have that particular mutant gene, right?
Peter,
yeah.
Okay, that's all. Because he doesn't have a mutant gene and he's doing good. So that's all. We're just, trying to get some information.
Peter, you want to introduce yourself and your call to this young lady?
Sure, Marta. Marta, we have two calls for prostate cancer. One.
Yeah.
Which
one is on.
Which you're on now for. The one we're on now. Yeah,
Monday and then on Thursday, right?
No. They're both on. Okay, the one call you're on now is the advanced call, and that's a weekly call, and it's either Monday or Tuesday. It alternates. Okay, and the reason then I moderate a call twice a month on Mondays, the second and fourth Mondays. We just had one yesterday, in fact, for low and intermediate prostate cancer, and that's probably the call or the question where you want to be and where you want to.
Yeah.
So
he's he's 6 months into recovery right now, and he's doing really good, and he's not having any problems or anything. So it's just for support.
So let me give you my email, and if you have any specific questions, I'd be glad to field them for you.
Oh, okay.
My email is Peter K, Peterk.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got to get a pen. There should be one right there.
Here.
Peter what? You did say Peter, right?
Peter K. Peter K at ANCAN, ANCAN.org.
Okay.
Okay, just email me any questions or concerns you might have, and I'll get back to you. And we can consider this outside the meeting because our next meeting will
Right.
be this month. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Martha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, let's see. We have John Appler wanted to talk tonight.
Yeah, thanks. Nothing, really urgent for me. Len, just I've been on Lupron now for about a year and a half. I'll have my 2-year anniversary in August, and I do notice the muscle loss. I'm trying to exercise hard in the gym. My numbers are good in terms of undetectable PSA at the non-ultrafine level, and that's about it for me. Just trying to watch diet very closely and exercise heavily. And I have had success with using, believe it or not, this CBD oil. It seemed to help me relax me and seemed to lower my blood pressure for some reason. But things are by and large good. I enjoyed having a beer with Peter the other day, and I really appreciate being on this call just to plan my next moves here.
Okay, great. Glad things are working well. Now, the CBD oil, is that hemp oil or is it from the cannabis sativa plant or sativa?
Yeah, it's a non-psychoactive portion. It doesn't have any THC, so you don't get high, but it seems to have. There hasn't been a lot of research on it, because they have only had animal studies. But a lot of people seem to report it has the same effects I'm having. My doctors both recommend it, and it might be something that people want to try. So I don't know.
So this sounds like the hemp oil, where you don't need a medical marijuana license to get it. You can get it OTC or on the internet. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. People take it using a dosage of 10 to 20 milligrams a day. And it seems to have a lot of success. It's kind of a hot topic, these days. In fact, even Pepsi and some of the major soft drink people were looking to had made announcements about putting in some products that they were developing. So it seems to have a lot of promise. Not much research, but I personally have had some success with it, just on an anecdotal basis. I have a new doctor who's both an oncologist and a MD, just a real smart guy, and he has good reports from all of his patients about it, as does a psychiatrist I use for sleep medication. He also says he's had good reports. So.
And so you're right. I'm sure we've all seen it in the news lately. And one thing I saw was they said it's possible that you might not really know what you're getting when you buy these things on the internet. So he suggested that you ask the seller if the supplier is a certified lab, whatever that means. Do you know if you're using a certified lab?
Yes, I am. I'm getting it that my pharmacist locally is a really nice lady, very sharp, and she did all the research and handpicked this particular brand, and we're in that phase of the product where you're right. It's not regulated, so there's 20 people out there selling it, and probably 19 or 20 are not reputable. So you're right. And this one is certified in terms of it's a lab. It's had to have measurements done and accuracy confirmed, those kinds of things. But yeah, you're right. That's a very good cautionary point to make to anybody who's considering taking it. Oh, it also, in animal studies, it seems to reverse the detrimental effects of alcohol on your liver. And they haven't had any human studies, but that's what they found in rats. And I have seen exactly that. I always had borderline high liver scores, and now they're solidly down in the range, and it seemed to have had a positive impact. And I still like my wine, haven't changed my habits, but my scores are much better for some reason.
That's fantastic.
You're in California, right, John?
Actually, Hawaii, Jake.
Oh, okay. And you can get it local. You can get it. Is Hawaii one of those states that approves medical marijuana?
Hawaii is at the medical right now, but this CBD portion of it isn't regulated. I don't think in any state. I think you can buy it just about anywhere over the counter.
I do know, and I don't know if you heard this, Len, but again at the PCRI from the discs, there is apparently an FDA approved CBD concoction that's now available. I forget the name of it, and I'm sure it's expensive as as any other new drug, but there is something that the FDA has approved for what it's worth. But if you got something that's working, by all means, keep doing it.
That seems to reduce inflammation in your brain. Pardon me?
Has it had an effect on your PSA?
PSA is unchanged. My local urologist says, "Hey, John, you don't have to go to the super fine level because as long as you're under Lupron, the nadir you've achieved, it's not going to, jump up dramatically." I'm not sure if that's great advice, but I'm following that for the time being, and then when I go off Lupron, I'll start taking up the 2-digit level of specificity, I guess.
And John, just for quick background, what was your primary therapy?
I had a high dosage brachytherapy and 25 sessions of EBRT. And that was both at UCSF and San Francisco. And that's where my urologist, GU medical oncologist is the same one that Eric Bookbinder had been seeing, and that's Dr. Agarwal. Ironically, he specified, by the way, Len, in my last set of tests, and he took out a lot of the tests that you and I had been, seeing with the MOV scores and MCH scores and a lot of the scores that just indicate kind of general trauma in the body. Ironically, he went to a set of tests that were less specific than earlier doctors, and not sure if that's a good thing. Maybe it reduces calls into his office, but it does reduce stress when you don't have to see all those out of range scores on your test all the time.
And John, what was your original Gleason score?
I'm a 4+4 Gleason 8.
Okay.
John, this is Rich Jackson. I was wondering how long you were on ADT with the high dose and the 25 IMRT.
Okay, I started the Lupron back in August of last year, so this August I'll be coming up on my 2-year anniversary of being on Lupron. And I have, despite exercise, have the weight gain, especially around my middle, and have lost in my shoulders, despite, a lot in my shoulders, despite having worked out 3 times a week.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
John, this is Jay. I had a question. I'm just about to finish my 25 IMRT after high dose at UCSF, and my PSA taken yesterday, just 3 days before I finish, is 0.466. And I was wondering where you came in right after you finished your treatment, if you could share that.
Well, I'm really sorry, Jack. I can't recall specifically. I know I have it in my records, but I can't recall specifically what it was. I'm on Lupron. Was very effective for me, which I started taking a couple months before, and that really knocked it down. And I don't think it was as at all high after my HDR.
After treatment. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Did you have yours done in San Francisco as well by Dr. Shu?
Yes, I did. I did.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Did it go well for you?
I think so. Well, and have a little bit of fatigue, and but it finished up, and I just have 2 more sessions left of IMRT.
Good.
I'll be glad
good.
to be done with that.
Good. Have you had any to go on tamsulosin or any type of Flomax type medication for your urinary
I've been
stream?
I've been on tamsulosin as soon as I really needed it right after the HDR, and then when I went on IMRT, I really needed it as well. Some nights, well, still I get up about 4 or 5 times a night while I'm on IMRT here. But on the weekends when I've been, it improved. So I'm looking forward to seeing recovery and reduced trips to the bathroom at night, and not having to stand there so long.
Yeah. You just know you're not alone. That's the same mode I'm in as well. And if I don't, after taking it for a year, if I miss one day of tamsulosin, I can feel it.
Yeah. And that's the really challenge too, of getting a good night's sleep with all that going on. It ends up about 2 o'clock in the morning. Things just start flowing, and the last 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours of sleep are the best.
Yeah, that's right. When you should be getting your best, deep sleep and REM sleep and all that. Yeah, never fails.
Yeah.
And your first name again was Jay, right?
Yeah, Jay. Yeah, we had talked on the phone a while back. I'd given you a call. And
I remember that.
And
I'm
staying.
That's right.
Yeah, over on Webster, at the corner of Webster in California. Got an apartment here, so I'm not. I've got a nice walk, but not too far. So.
Oh, I remember, Jay. Sure. Yeah, that's great. That's a great neighborhood to stay in. Yeah, I'll ping you back offline. I got some great restaurants that we're hitting the area there, and you'll love.
Okay, that sounds great. I've got your number still. I'll reach out to you.
All right, that sounds good, Jay. Good to connect.
I have a question for you, Jay. I thought I heard you say your PSA was 0.46. Was that before radiation?
That's right.
Oh, okay.
No, that's after radiation. Before radiation, I think I was about 3 point something, and before HDR, and then I've had HDR immediately followed by 21 sessions now of IMRT, and I just had another one done, and it's 0.46. And I don't know where that stands, if that's in range or if I'm high or low or what.
Well, it's unusual that they would even measure your PSA while you're having radiation. Peter, have you ever heard of that before?
No, usually it's afterwards. Usually you don't have a PSA or blood. I mean, they do blood work prior to radiation, but I'm not sure I ever did it during radiation. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I asked my doctor, I said, what do you think I should do after this? I've visited several doctors, and they've said you should just monitor it. Others said you should consider chemotherapy or high grade. Recent 8, some say 9, and then 40 PSA and seminal vesicle involvement. So he said, well, what was your PSA? And I said, well, before I started the radiation, it was a 2. And he said, well, before you leave town, why don't you go ahead and get a PSA and we'll talk about it. So that's where I am right now. I haven't talked to him yet.
Do you have a medical oncologist there at UCSF?
No, my medical oncologist is back in Tennessee. But I
okay, so you've got someone. Okay, that's the important thing.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I do. Anyway, I'm not sure. There's right after you finish radiation, your PSA will be at a level, and it should, as I understand, continue to decline for 18 months or more, and or not, depending.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe that's
about right. not right.
Okay.
It happened with Len, it happened with me. The radiation will keep working for a while, and then it might not after a certain number of months.
That's right.
Year and a half is probably about average. Yeah.
Where
But
did,
you know,
where
Jay,
did, where did other people's? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I just, as in Peter's experience and in mine, we find it very unusual that they would be measuring your PSA when your radiation is ongoing. So next time you see your doctor, for the benefit of the guys on this call, or at least for me, I'd be curious to know, why is he taking a PSA measurement in the middle of your radiation or wherever it is? Rather, in my case, and probably most guys, they wait at least 2 or 3 months after radiation before they even check your PSA.
Okay.
Jay, Rich Jackson.
Yes.
I had high dose brachytherapy in January, and they didn't. Excuse me. They didn't test my PSA until 6 months after that.
Wow. Okay.
Because of the injury to the prostate from the catheters for the high dose. But it was 6 months after the high dose, and probably about 4 months after I completed the 25 IMRT.
Yeah. Okay. And so they wanted things to settle down, and they didn't want you to.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes sense that there's going to be a lot of change. You probably a lot continuing to improve and then slow down over time, I would guess. And the reason why he had, I think the reason why he did it was that I pressed him on the question of, I said that I had been I've talked to 3 medical oncologists, and one of them had said, I would recommend that you go immediately to do chemotherapy immediately after IMRT. And I asked him what he thought of that, and he said, well, I'm a radiation guy. And I said, I know, but I just wanted to see what you thought of it. And he said, well, would like to know what your PSA is, and then talk about what studies that I know about say. So once you get a PSA, and so that's why he did it. But on the other hand, and it was also because I'm leaving town. I won't see him again unless I come back out here from Tennessee to California. So those may be the reasons why. But I will ask and find out if I should wait. When will it be when would it typically be read, and what and why? Why would I wait? How long? So I'll find out that question.
What drugs are you on, Jay? Are you on Lupron and something else?
Just Degarelix. Started in June.
Okay.
And then had HDR in a month and a half ago, and am about to finish the 25 IMRT.
Are you going to stay on? You're going to stay on Degarelix?
I wanted to switch over to Lupron but just do a 1 month and see how it does, because I've had just the about every 45 minutes I have a hot flash, and all day long. And then the only other symptom I have is that I'm starting to collect scar tissue across my belly that's starting to protrude a bit and look funny. The roll of fat underneath my belly button is getting very pronounced because of the scar, sort of these knots and tubular scar tissue. And so I wanted to maybe stop that if the Lupron's just the same.
No, Lupron's a lot easier on you. It's a shot in the butt. You don't have to worry about that, about that shot.
So that'd be the reason.
Yeah, Jay, I was on Degarelix for, I don't know, maybe 13 months or so before I switched to Lupron. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I had those fibroids accumulating in my lower abdomen. And I haven't had a Degarelix shot in almost 2 years. And yet if I press on my lower abdomen, I can still feel those fibroids. So I don't know if they eventually go away, but mine haven't yet. And Lupron is a much easier way to go than Degarelix. So I would encourage you to switch over. Can anyone else hear Jay? I can't hear him.
Your microphone is bad connection, Jay.
Okay. Let me see. Mike, can you hear me?
Still can't hear you.
Try again. Here.
Now you should be able to hear me. Hello?
Yes, gotcha.
Okay. My earbud, I could still hear with it, but the voice had cut out. The battery was fading. So I'm on my handset. Yeah, that you've seconded my thought that I should, when I get back to Tennessee, have my medical oncologist give me a 1 month Lupron to test how I do with that. So good. And I guess that's my real question is how soon after IMRT have people been tested? It sounded like 6 months or 4 months, 3 or 4 months, and a couple of months for somebody else. Anybody sooner?
Months more.
Yeah, I think two or 3 months is
Yeah.
more typical. Sorry, John, I think I was talking over you. What did you say?
No, I think, this is the Lupron brain again, but I'm almost positive it was at least 3 months. And I had no recollection of that 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, Jay, I would, my oncologist is pretty aggressive in terms of testing. I would, if your oncologist suggests going every 3 months or every 2 months, that's fine. But once you're a year out or something, I would start going to at least every month or 6 weeks and just keeping an eye on things, because that's if things are going to start popping, at the 18th month level, you want to keep an eye on it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, my oncologist takes a PSA test and a testosterone test and a blood panel and some other panel every time I go to get a shot every month, every Degarelix shot. And if I go to Lupron, I'll be doing it for 2 months, and then I'll jump to the 3 months. And then I'll ask him the question of, does he still want me to do a monthly PSA? Anyway, that's what I'll do. Okay, thanks guys, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Larry Fish, I believe you said you had some comments. Is he still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I had to unmute.
Okay.
You got me?
Gotcha.
Well, I've been on Lupron more than going on 4 years now, about to reach 4 years. And in that course of 4 years, I've gained about 30 pounds, maybe at least around 30, 31 pounds. And I was obese to begin with. Although muscular, I was still about 50 pounds overweight. I've been thinking about some kind of, I've been exercising, but I haven't been losing weight. And I started to think about some kind of bariatric procedure. I wonder if anybody has any experience with the balloon, the laparoscopic adjustable lap band. I don't really want to do stomach surgery. I want to do something that's reversible. And I was really thinking the value that I could get out of losing 20, 30, 40 pounds in terms of the kind of sugar that was floating around in my body, the diabetes that developed over the last couple of years. I know maybe I wouldn't stop metformin, but the statin, the cholesterol pill, the water pill, these whole series of pills I take every day that I find so annoying and make me so yucky. I don't know how much is the Lupron and how much is all this other junk that I'm taking. And I was getting to the point where I start to think that I can see, I'm 70, I can see that I've been overweight since I was 40, 35, when I was pretty athletic. I can see that this is never going to reverse itself. And I don't know how many years I have left, maybe more than I think. I'm still at the Lupron stage and on the border of moving to Zytiga or something else, but not yet. So while I have a good 2 years, probably, maybe more, I was thinking about doing something which is sort of the major personal goal I'd have in my life other than, living for a while. So I didn't know if anybody we know has tried anything, has run into this or thought about this. I wrote to my oncologist. She didn't have any cancer-related objections. That's my thought.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Larry. I don't know if anyone on the call has had this issue or if they've done anything about it. Please do speak up.
Well, this is Jake, Larry. I don't know of any. I haven't had it personally because I've lost weight since I've been on Lupron and on metformin and everything. I don't know why everybody else seems to gain weight, but I've actually lost weight. But my son's mother-in-law had the stomach thing, the staples, I think, and she's lost significant amount of weight. And my wife's cousin lost a significant amount of weight with the laparoscopic surgery. Now she ended up dying of a heart attack about a year later. I don't know. I don't think they were related, but she did lose a lot of weight, and so it does work.
Yeah, and the laparoscopic is reversible.
Yeah, that I don't know.
Yeah, that's the only one besides the balloon which has bad rep, which is reversible and has some kind of significant weight loss. I don't know. Thinking, just been on my mind lately. That's all.
Larry,
That's all I really had to say.
Yeah. Are you active on any of the online prostate cancer support forums like Inspire or?
Yeah, I follow Inspire, but I guess I could put something out there.
Yeah, because that's a much larger audience than what we have.
Yeah, I thought about it, but I don't know. I don't see like it. Inspire has gotten kind of a little flakier lately, it seems like.
Always been a little flaky. There's always some characters on there,
Yeah, they're always there. They're always there.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah, or even just a general Google search outside of the forum.
I've been doing that part. That part I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Larry, what about lifestyle changes?
I'm enjoying my life. I don't know. I mean,
I know, but are you in a gym? Do you have a trainer?
Yes.
You do.
Trainer, no, but gym, yes. I'm not interested.
Okay, sometimes a trainer, some way to inspire you to work a little harder, to work on diet a little bit more. I mean, I find those kind of things make a difference. At least they have for me, because I found I got a little bit lazy with myself. For me, I have a girlfriend who's really on my case, asking me about my weight, twice a day or whatever. So it's inspired me to
change girlfriends. Change girlfriends.
That's what I was going to say. You're asking me that twice a day.
It's hard me to pay attention to these things. Yeah, I really watch what I eat carefully. I'm not diabetic, but metformin has helped me in terms of cutting down on my weight. And even though I'm still on Lupron, I'm still on Zytiga and so forth, but I've eliminated that extra weight stuff by exercise and really being careful about my diet, and trying to put myself in situations where I shop for myself, but I don't put a lot of food in my fridge, so I don't have the temptation to eat anything. I keep it pretty bare. So it's those kind of disciplines, and finding someone to exercise with or take walks with or go to the gym with, those kind of things can be inspiring and make us work a little bit harder. I mean, I don't think there's a magic pill for this. I think a lot of it's going to come down to changes in attitude and lifestyle.
I think that's a great idea for like 10, 20, 25 pounds. But I think research shows that 99.9% of people who lose large amounts of weight over a 5-year period, God bless 5 years, they gain it back, or they gain back more. It's just a rare individual that actually succeeds in losing significant, 20% or more of their overweight weight, and it's just the reality. Yeah, Jake.
I'm sorry, Larry. Have you tried like Weight Watchers?
I'm embarrassed to say that I used to give lectures to Weight Watchers and to TOPS, Take Off Pounds Sensibly, that I was a athletic registered dietitian, clinical dietitian, and it was the Hippocratic, physician heal thyself, is what it turns out to be. Is like, I'm enjoying life. I always think, well, if I leave my job, I'll have time to go to the gym 3 days a week, and do elliptical 3 days a week, and walk, and yoga, and Feldenkrais, and meditate, and cook better, and not eat out. But so far, I'm still working. I don't know. It just I got into this thought about a couple months ago.
I was just going to say, my son and his wife both were extremely overweight. My son, and I didn't realize this, but he was up to 368 pounds, and he lost 100 pounds on Nutrisystem, on Weight Watchers.
On Weight Watchers.
Yeah, 100 pounds in about a year, and his wife lost a similar amount, and they look phenomenal.
That is wonderful. There is this.
So maybe that'd be worth giving it a try again.
Yeah, I think about it, but I'd hate to spend 5 years struggling and then not be alive also. I'm sort of thinking, my time probably or may be limited, and I've been going up and down and through this for 30 years. And it was my profession before I failed at it. Anyway, I appreciate it. I just wanted to bring up this idea that's floating around in my head.
Okay.
That was the whole thing. But I appreciate maybe I'll give it another push. Maybe I really will cut my work down, and that's my other fantasy, that I'll work less and change that time to diet, cooking, and exercise.
Well, Larry, are you working? I know you're in your 70s, so are you working because you need the money, or you enjoy working?
Well, I enjoy the department. I enjoy what I built at work. So I do enjoy. I don't enjoy the work exactly, but I enjoy the team of people we have on the job, and I don't know what'll happen if I leave. I'm sure they can always replace people, but it's I'm sort of dedicated to it, and it's partially the money. I'd have to be a lot more careful about money if I stop working. I have to be pretty strict about how I lived, and now I sort of don't pay attention. If I want something, I just get it, more or less. If it's not if it's not a big ticket item. So I enjoy that part of it. if I don't do this, I really will have to go to 3 days a week and try the way you guys are talking, Peter and Jake are talking about. I didn't want to spend a lot of time. I just wanted to bring this idea out and think about what's going to happen.
Okay.
Good luck, brother.
Yeah, good
Thanks,
luck.
guys.
And
If I do something radical, I'll let you know.
yeah, please do. And sorry we weren't able to help you much here.
No, I got to push for, taking the hard road, taking the good road, the hard road, the honorable road.
Do the right thing, right?
Right.
Okay.
All right.
I'm just of the belief that if you can avoid surgery, you're better off, unless it's absolutely necessary. If you can do something else, as an alternative to surgery, you're probably better off. Because there are inherent dangers, no matter what, bans or whatever. There's still inherent.
I agree with you, Jake, 100%, which is why I haven't proceeded.
Your next door neighbor there, Chris Christie, didn't he have that band therapy? Didn't seem to work much for him.
Not much at all, if at all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to follow you. I think I'm going to give it another. I think I'm going to try the 3 days of work week and really emphasize the diet and exercise. I think that's going to be the result. Anyway, that's my piece.
Okay. Thank you again, Larry. Well, looks like Dick Bailey, as far as I know, has not showed up. And we've got about 10 minutes left on the clock, but we don't have any more people who wanted to contribute, at least at the beginning. Anyone changed their mind? And now that we have some time, you'd like to let us know what's on your mind.
I have a couple questions for Les. I don't know if I see his microphone is not on. I don't know if he's can hear me or he's near something.
There he goes. He hears you.
Yeah,
I'm here.
Yeah, I just wanted to compare notes a little bit. I don't want to bore everybody else, but when you did the proton beam therapy at Mayo, and you met with the docs, did they show you your scans toward the end? And did they say there was shrinkage of the tumor, or did you see like no effect and they told you it would continue to work and it would shrink later on? What was your experience there?
Well, they didn't show much of any change. They didn't really show that at all, and they indicated, it would take time to do its thing. That was the impression I got.
Yeah, they told me the same thing in California. They showed me you could see the tumor. One of the tumors in the lymph node. It hadn't changed much at the end of my radiation, but they kind of gave me the assurance that it would indeed change over the next month or two. I was just wondering, because there's not many places doing this. And I was wondering what they said to you.
What did they give you for a timetable and when you're supposed to go back for reevaluation or whatever?
They didn't say anything about that. I'm just gonna watch my PSA and keep in touch with my oncologist. The only question I did ask is if other metastatic lymph nodes showed up, would I still be a candidate for proton beam therapy? And they said yes, they can, because it's so targeted. You could come back and hit another one or two at another time.
Okay. Yeah, I just got a notification from the Mayo Clinic that I'm on tap for appearing there the end of February 28th for reevaluation, going through the C11 choline PET scan again, etc.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, the place I went doesn't do those kind of scans, so they wouldn't call me back. I don't think they'd just be on tap if I did a scan and found out I needed something. But I'm not going to do a scan until my PSA indicates I need to. And right now, I'm still on Lupron and Zytiga, so everything's still undetectable again.
Les, when did you say they were going to schedule you for the next choline scan?
February 28th.
February. Oh, okay. Several months out.
And Les, how many treatments did you have?
25.
And how many shots did they give you each of those 25 days? How many places did they radiate?
They didn't show places. It was just a scan. They didn't show the individual spots.
Oh, so they didn't move the equipment and line you up a second time or a third time at all? They just shot you once? How often did you hear the proton machine going?
Well, it was twice, but it would go for something like 3-4 minutes, and then they'd rotate you about 170 degrees and do it again.
Okay, that's what I meant. So they hit two spots, it sounds like. Okay. It's interesting. I just want to compare notes. It sounds a little bit different than my experience, but I don't know whether the machinery is different or what's different.
So Peter, it sounds like in your case, they had specific targets they were going after, just like they might with SBRT.
Exactly.
Whereas with Les, it almost sounds like they're doing something analogous to a whole pelvic girdle area where they're not targeting anything in particular, just a region. So
pretty much so, yes. That they pretty much just blanket, but they indicated that there were certain lymph nodes where they would put additional emphasis. I don't know how they did that, but that's what they were indicating.
Yeah, they can do that. Okay.
Interesting. Had you had previous regular radiation, Les?
I had radiation at the beginning back in 2013, had external beam radiation.
Okay.
That was part of the treatment was that, and hormone treatment was it. I did not have surgery.
Right. But Mayo had all those records of where the previous radiation was and so forth, right?
Yes, I had them send up the map, they called it, from local to the Mayo Clinic so they could see it.
Yeah, I think we had similar situations. I don't quite understand what your experience was compared to mine, but anyway, I just wanted to kind of compare notes a little bit. It does for sure sound a little bit different. And again, yes. I don't know if that's the machinery or what it is, or your physical dynamics as compared to mine. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think they were targeting a little bit different things too, so probably the procedure was a little bit different.
Okay. Okay.
So Peter, you had I think either 2 or 3 specific abdominal lymph nodes that showed up. Is that right?
Correct. One on either side of my.
Okay. And Les, did they give you a number, like you have 2 or 3 or 4 lymph nodes that are showing up?
They didn't give them any specific numbers. They just indicated that there were a few spots that they were targeting with higher dosage.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe that's the difference. I don't know, maybe Les, his lesions were a little more diffuse than yours, Peter.
I don't know. We'll keep in contact and compare notes as we go along. Hopefully this is successful for both of us. Whatever we
and
do.
Les, are you still on hormone therapy, Les?
Yes.
Okay. Blueprint. And so Peter's going off in January. How about you?
They indicated that I'm going to be on it for probably 2 years.
Oh, wow. Very different.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll be tracking you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, Len.
Hello?
Len? Hey, Len, John Appler, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Hi, John.
Len, one last question I wanted to ask you with regard to Al Path with his amazing results of Arleta as monotherapy. He published results of his testosterone rising to above a normal level, but then we didn't hear back from him. At least I haven't kept in touch with him. Has that trend continued or has it stabilized out? What's been the update for Al Path's numbers?
Yeah, I just heard from him a few days ago, and his T levels at 400, which he actually claims is higher than it was before he had prostate cancer.
Yes.
And his PSA level had dropped to 0.05, which I believe is as low as he's ever been. I'm not sure if he was ever undetectable before, but I mean, he's really low right now. And as I think I mentioned when I was telling my story, his experience with Erlita was that he had fatigue and joint pain, and so to me, I'm wondering, well, what's the difference if your T level is 400 if you've got fatigue from the drug? I'm not sure there's that much benefit there, but I don't know his his relationship situation, if he has libido or whatever, but just going with that was the biggest thing I noticed when I went off hormone drugs and I was drug free, was my energy level was substantially raised. So if I'm on a drug that's keeping my T levels high, but my energy is flagging, I'm not sure there's that much benefit.
Yeah.
Glenn, do you know if Al is he metastatic? Do you know?
He was. I don't know what his situation is now, but yeah, he had a few bone mets.
Okay. Yeah, it's his whole thing is fascinating. I hope it works out.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, guys. It is now 8 o'clock. Any last minute comments someone would like to contribute?
Thanks very much. Very interesting session. And Jay, I'll ping you later about good restaurants in San Francisco.
Hey, sounds great. Thanks.
Okay, guys. Thanks for all of your participation. And our next session is Monday.
Christmas Day is 2 weeks from this Tuesday. I doubt Rick is going to have a session, but he'll probably contact everybody.
No, he's not. I thought I heard him say it last night on your call.
Yeah, right.
But we'll still have one. We'll still have one on next Monday.
Yeah,
right.
Just in case Sylvester, happy holidays, everybody.
You too.
Thanks,
Thanks, Sylvester. Happy holidays, and thanks, Len, for leading the session.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Len. Thank you.
Take care. You guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.